Lordy, lordy, look who's 40. That's this week on Motoring 2005.
TSN's Motoring 2005 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
This week we're going to celebrate a birthday. Not mine or anybody else's on the program. I don't think so. Is it your birthday, Pete? No, I didn't think so. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, it's the 40th birthday of the Ford Mustang, North America's best-selling sports car. And this week, we're going to look back at the Mustang and try and discover why it has become such a classic. And later, Graham is going to get behind the wheel of the brand new 05 Mustang. But first, let's go back to the beginning.
Mustang. Mustang is coming. Mustang is coming April 17th. The unexpected, the new Ford Mustang at your Ford dealers.
Mustang has really established the pony car genre, if you like. It stole a march on the industry in 1964, and it was done by cleverly taking Falcon components and creating this sleek Mustang body with a long hood and a short deck. And although it had these mundane components, it turned out to be a real winner.
Out of the Ford Pavilion, there's a daydream corner called Mustang. This is the car that dreams are made of. Dream your own Mustang. Take your choice of a 6 or 3 V8s, power steering, power brakes, automatic or standard transmission, dozens of options. But as standard equipment, you get bucket seats, wall-to-wall carpeting, all vinyl upholstery, padded instrument panel, and full wheel covers. Even though Mustang is a dream, its low price is a beautiful reality. Test drive one right now at your Ford dealers in Pleasant Dreams.
Took the rest of the industry 2.5 years to catch up. Took Chevrolet 2.5 years to come out with a competitor in the Camaro. The Mustang established the pony car genre, and it stayed true to the course as a relatively inexpensive, fairly high performance, 2-passenger, occasionally 4-passenger car that didn't change very much, didn't change dramatically, but it changed just enough and kept up with technology that people, buyers, especially younger buyers, continued to buy it. And it was a very popular car just for those reasons.
I'm a big fan of the 66 Shelby Fastback. It's a smaller pony car, very good power to weight ratio, and it's just classic lines. So the signature cues for me really started with that car. I think the best thing about Mustang is everyone can recall their first time they've seen a Mustang, and for me it was as a small boy living in Vietnam, in Saigon. I saw one as part of a tour that they were doing for the U.S. military, and it was seven Mach 1 cars, and it left a lasting impression on me, and it's been a dream come true to come to work for Ford and also have a chance to work on an icon like Mustang.
Now, take a look at the 05 Mustang. You can see the Mustang roots, the Mustang heritage, its DNA is all there. And but what Ford has done, of course, is totally upgraded it with a brand new platform. It carried that Fox platform on for about 25 years. And the new one has got the latest in technology, but you can see that it still retains the same pony car tradition as the original Mustang.
She's all sweets and bucket seats, sweets
six-cylinder Mustang, power-packed and really stacked. Sweet six-cylinder Mustang, low-gas diet made me try it. Sweet six-cylinder Mustang, you're my kind of car. Yes, you really are. She's a root-toot-tootin', big six-shootin', sweet six-cylinder Mustang.
Why don't you come in and see what a terrific deal the Ford dealer will give you on a new Mustang? It's got all kinds, all colors, all options. Pick out any one you like. All except this one. This one's mine.
Sweet six-cylinder Mustang.
In spite of my comments about this car, there's nothing that a good dose of refinement won't fix. Indeed, it makes for a hellacious ride that's almost impossible to beat on a bang-for-the-buck basis. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hey you! Get out of the pool! More later on Kenzie's Corner.
For 25 years it was nip and tuck and no major change. This week on Test Drive, it's the all-new Ford Mustang.
The Mustang is one of the few cars to have successfully escaped the axe a number of times. Way back when, it was supposed to be replaced by the lackluster Probe, a front-wheel drive car of all things. Mercifully, it lived to see another day. The good news is that it now comes with more brawn than ever. Pop the hood of the GT and you'll find a throaty 4.6 litre V8 that dishes out 300 horsepower and a silky 320 pound-feet of torque. The really good news is that it does everything very well. Around town it burbles along without becoming a temperamental little beggar. However, drop the hammer and the Mustang hauls serious arse, leaving molten rubber in the process. The 5-speed manual box helps matters as the clutch is light and progressive, which allows for those lovely burnouts, and the ratios are well spaced. It is a decidedly decent package, to be sure.
One of the biggest disappointments with the rework of this new Mustang is the fact that they retained the solid rear axle of the old car. Now, according to the engineer, well, that was done because it's the best way of putting the power to the pavement. Now, whilst that's true in a straight line, what happens to this Mustang mid-corner? Well, if you hit rutted road, the back axle starts hopping around. The suspension has a bit of a hard time controlling that movement, which means that the driver has a harder time controlling the car than he should. An independent rear suspension would have been the way to go. After all, it works exceptionally well on a 500 horsepower Viper and a 507 horsepower BMW M5.
Now, many are going to chastise me for being too picky. Sorry, but when you start with a supposedly clean sheet of paper, you have a world of options. While the solid rear axle is not that much of a sacrifice, as was ably demonstrated through the pylon test, where the Mustang ate it up and spat the cones out one at a time. However, and it is a big however, an independent rear suspension would have taken a very good car and transformed it into a great one. That aside, the handling characteristics are very good. The response to steering input is light and lively, and the amount of roll at the limit is commendably controlled. The real upside is that the ride comfort is not completely sacrificed, as the Mustang swallows all but the largest and most abrupt bumps in stride.
You know, when you slip behind the wheel of this new Mustang, you will not be disappointed, and for two very important reasons. First of all, it blends retro with modern. In other words, there's touches of the original Mustang, or at least the 67, blended with everything you expect in a modern car. Fabulous radio, and all the controls are not only logically placed, they're large enough to operate with a gloved hand. The other point, and this really does impress, you can customize the instrumentation lighting to anything you want. Orange, amber, green, yellow, blue, red. There's even violet in there if that's your fancy. It really is the next step in dash design.
Elsewhere, the interior is already very nicely attired. However, throwing a couple of grand at it brings leather bucket seats complete with side seat-mounted airbags, a much-needed active anti-theft system, and an audio upgrade. You know, any notion that this is a four-seater car is put to rest the instant you get into the back seat. Even with the seat set for my short little legs, there's not enough room for my short little legs, and as for headroom, forget it. There's none. The bottom line, this thing is best used to strap your briefcase into and not another human being, unless of course it's your mother-in-law. Now on that note, I gotta try and get out. Gee whiz. There's even more good news in that anti-lock brakes and traction control are both standard items. Aside from a rather wooden brake pedal feel, the brake system does a good job of scrubbing off speed, bringing the Stang to a standstill in a short 31 metres from 80k. The need for the traction control system is obvious. In spite of the limited slip rear diff, the power at play is enough to overwhelm the large 235/55 ZR17 tyres. The electronic overseer steps in to prevent the driver from melting them. In spite of my comments about this new Mustang, there's nothing that a dollop of refinement won't fix. Indeed, this car is a hellacious ride that's impossible to beat on a bang-for-the-buck basis.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns your exhaust system. In late model cars, you've got extensive use of galvanized, aluminized, and in many cases stainless steel components for the muffler, resonators, and pipes. They last an awful long time if they're made of those materials, but in many cases the hangers and clamps and brackets that position and support the weight of the exhaust system won't last all that long. They're not made of those particular materials in many cases. This car is a perfect example. The muffler's hanging down well below where it should be. It should be up in that position, and you can see that just a little bit of motion of the vehicle will cause this to sway and swing about. Eventually that'll fracture components further up on the exhaust system just from that added motion. What you want to do is get the vehicle in and have the brackets and clamps that position the system changed. This one is a strap type clamp, a band that wraps around the muffler, just slips over the muffler like that, and this screw goes through to pinch it together. Then we move the whole works forward into a rubber hanger, and that will secure and position the exhaust system properly. Get it inspected every time you have your oil changed, and if there's any components like this one that are broken, change them right away. That's your Midas tip of the week.
They respected Liz in the lab. She was a PhD. But no one knew how much fizz there was to Liz until...
Only Mustang makes it happen. Only Mustang makes life great. Mustang moves you. Mustang grooves you. Mustang 68.
In her 68 Mustang Fastback, the PhD was pure TNT. Mustang 68, with great options like stereo radio and selection. Mustang, the original, a better idea than ever for 68. Nowadays, things are really bubbling, because as Liz can tell you, a PhD helps, but...
Only Mustang makes it happen. Mustang 68.
Our club is more of a classic Mustang club, 64 and after 73s, but inviting all cars, all types, all descriptions of Mustangs, and just basically having a celebration of the 40 years. Out the front, having a representative of each year as it goes through, and being able to sort of walk down the entranceway and see the progression and see where we are now, and then having the 05 here happened about 3 or 4 weeks ago, came together 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it just put the icing on the cake for the show.
My Mustang's a 99 SVT Cobra. Had it since it had about 9,000 kilometers on it. It was bone stock at the time, and from there I just started modifying it and turning it into my dream car. We did a supercharger, a Novi 2000 supercharger on there with an intercooler, 410 gears. We got full exhaust done, headers done. Pretty much the car's been changed dramatically from stock. I mean, from the body kit to the hood to the Celine stuff that I've put on it, and it's just pretty much almost to where I want it to be. Power right now is dynoed at 470 at the rear wheels, 400 pounds of torque, so we got good numbers out of it. I'm not really keen on the new body style. I like some of the interior features, but we'll see, it could grow on me.
I got to ask you this question. My single biggest disappointment is they went to the extent of redesigning that car and they kept the solid rear axle. You'd have thought in today's, I mean, that was 1960s technology. We're now 2004, 40th anniversary. Why wouldn't they go with an independent rear suspension?
Good question. The chief engineer's here today. I haven't had a chance to speak with him, Graham. His name's Hal. But you know what? I want that on motor. You can't throw me in front of the bus.
Why did you keep the solid rear axle?
Yeah, we kept the solid rear axle for a couple of reasons. One was we talked about performance. It's really unsurpassed for straight line performance. It has very high torque capacity. 27% of our customers do some sort of aftermarket customization, and a solid rear axle is has high torque capacity, so if they were to put on any performance upgrades, we know it'll live. It's also very easy to change the rear end ratio. It's overall a very nice package for us. It's a combination of performance, torque capacity, customization, cost and weight is essentially why we did it.
We're going to head to the Quaker State garage and join Bill Gardner. Now, there's two things that have never changed since I've known Bill. First, his love of pickup trucks, and second, his dislike of Ford products. But I wonder if that includes the Ford Mustang. How about it, Bill?
Well, Brad, I quite like the Mustang. I mean, what isn't there to like about big, powerful V8 and rear-wheel drive made in the USA iron? You got to love that. But you know what? My dad and I used to have some pretty spirited discussions around the dinner table. He loved Ford pickups. I like GMs. Now, basically, I like the GMs because I like working on them better. I find Fords awkward to diagnose and to service and repair as compared to GM products. But that's just my personal taste. But you know, Brad, I can't believe how many market segments General Motors has just handed to Ford. They've handed them the pony car segment. Now, the Mustang's got it all to itself. No more Firebird and Camaro. And look at full-size rear-wheel drive V8s. Go to an airport or drive through the States. Crown Victorias, Grand Marquis, Lincolns. That's all you see at the airports is limos and taxis. And at the airport, you see all kinds of shuttle buses, too. The vans, they're mostly Econolines. 10-1, they outnumber GM. And station wagons, GM hasn't made one of those in years. Ford owns that segment completely. I know it's small, but there's three key segments that General Motors has just handed over to Ford. Wake up, Oshawa, give them a run for their money. Now, we've got an email this week we want to answer from a fellow named Calvin Shaw. He's got a mid-90s GM Cavalier, and he's got a stalling problem when he comes off the highway. He says it only occurs in winter or colder temperatures. Comes off the highway, rides the brakes down to a stop, it starts chugging and bucking, and then it stalls. Now, this was a fairly common problem with GM cars in the 80s and 90s. If they came with a THM 125 transmission, that's likely the transmission that was in our viewer's car. The part that you want to have checked, Calvin, is called the torque converter clutch solenoid. It's abbreviated to TCC solenoid. It's a part inside the transmission. Ask your mechanic to check it, and basically what you do is road test the car till you generate the problem, and your mechanic will know when he feels it. It's quite clear cut, but basically what we do is unplug it or disable it for a day or two, try the car. If the problem disappears, you've confirmed that that's what it was. It won't hurt it to be disabled for a couple of days, then you can go into the transmission, change the TCC solenoid inside the transmission. It's something you've got to have a tranny shop or a mechanic who's experienced do, and your problem will be gone. Now, the torque converter clutch solenoid eliminates the slippage in the torque converter, so it helps your vehicle give better fuel economy, and it helps it run, the transmission run at a cooler temperature during the summertime. So you want to have it properly fixed. One other thing, ask them to clean the throttle body as well. Anytime you have a stalling problem, one of the first things you could do. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2005.
A lot of municipalities in Canada these days have diamond lanes on their major arterial roads. Now, the regulations vary from city to city, but generally speaking, during rush hour, these lanes are restricted to buses, taxis, or carpools. Now, that's normally defined as 3 or more people in the car. It's not like in the States where it's usually 2 people. I mean, in California, you can carpool in a Miata. But you know, you see these things violated all the time. These jerks jump into these lanes, pass 15 or 20 cars, and then zip back in front of the rest of traffic. It makes you revert to that age-old adage, where's a policeman when you need one? Well, let's face it, folks, there just aren't enough cops to enforce every single regulation all the time. As in most things in civilized societies, it comes down to the individual behavior of its citizens. That's you and me. And let's face it, driving a car by yourself in rush hour, which I do, is a pretty selfish thing to do. If these people are prepared to put up with the inconvenience of a carpool, or worse still, a bus, or leave the car at home and take a taxi, well, it seems to me they deserve a break today and every day, and it's up to you and me to give it to them. I'm Jim Kenzie.
This year's model will likely be a collector's item in the future.
You know that old saying, where is all the time gone? Well, believe it or not, it was back on Motoring 89 when we were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Ford Mustang, and now it's 40. The question is, will the Mustang still be around and still be a classic 15 years from now? But maybe more importantly, hopefully, you and I will still be around 15 years from now. But we'll be back next week as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Yeah, 10-4, that's the one. Time of the offense, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, he was 5 meters back, just continued through on the red on the outside of the transport, or on the inside of the transport, pardon me.
Got her.
TSN's Motoring 2005 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.